We've got some breaking news to bring you now because William and Kate have broken their silence on the ongoing revelation.
11 a.m., Kensington Palace. Sunken garden. White flowers frame the stage. Young guests settle into their seats. Cameras line the outer path. Reporters expect something polished. A few warm words about service. A graceful tribute to the women who shaped the royal family. And a well-timed close. Nothing about the morning looks unusual, except for one thing. Charlotte hasn't removed her coat. Catherine noticed before they went on. She asked about it. Charlotte said she was cold. Catherine smiled and adjusted her collar, not suspecting for a moment that inside the lining of that coat sat the one piece of paper capable of turning this ceremonial morning into something no palace official had prepared to contain. She had been carrying it for 18 days. Let's go back to where this actually begins. Not the stage, not the moment Charlotte reached into her coat. The place this starts is 8 weeks earlier, inside a planning room, with a folder marked for the 30th anniversary of Princess Diana's passing. Catherine wanted the tribute to feel real. She had spent days reviewing photographs, charity records, handwritten notes from Diana's personal archive. She did not want another cold ceremony built around polished language and distant applause. She wanted warmth. She wanted something Diana herself would have recognized. The plan took shape over several weeks. 30 white roses, one for every year, placed beside Diana's statue in the sunken garden. A short film, no grand orchestral score, no heavy narration, just images. Diana listening, Diana laughing, Diana kneeling beside children in a hospital ward, Diana walking through rooms that others avoided. The final sequence would focus not on her titles but on her impact. And Charlotte would carry the final rose. Catherine hesitated before asking her. She didn't want her daughter used as a symbol before she was ready. She asked Charlotte privately, away from staff and cameras. Charlotte said yes immediately. She had never met Diana. She had grown up hearing stories. The jokes, the stubbornness, the way Diana could make a formal room feel less formal just by entering it. She wanted to read a few lines about learning kindness from a grandmother she knew only through memories passed down by others. William listened to the rehearsal without speaking. When Charlotte finished, he looked down before saying anything. Then he told Catherine it felt like the tribute his mother should have received years ago. That sentence stayed with her. Everything moved forward. The order was approved. Timings confirmed. Security raised no objection. The anniversary film moved into final editing. William and Catherine's household signed off. Then, a second folder arrived. The title sounded harmless. Ceremonial Harmonization and Protocol Amendments. Dry enough language to discourage close reading. The first page mentioned timing. The second referred to balance between royal households. The third spoke about avoiding duplication. The real changes appeared on page 4. Catherine's introduction, removed. Charlotte's final rose placement, reassigned to another figure. The Diana film, replaced with a broader segment honoring women of royal service generally. Final approval, transferred away from Catherine's team. 4 changes, 4 cuts, 1 message. Catherine read the page 3 times, looking for an explanation buried in the formal wording. There wasn't one. Diana's name hadn't been erased completely. That would have been too obvious. Her presence had been reduced, softened, folded into something safer. Catherine asked who had authorized the revision. The answer came carefully. The request had moved through Camilla's household. She objected. She explained that the original tribute had been approved, charities had been contacted, Charlotte had rehearsed. She was told the revised program would better reflect unity and prevent the anniversary from being too closely associated with one branch of the family. Then came the warning. If Catherine resisted too strongly, the disagreement could leak. It could be framed as a fight over Diana's memory. Worse, it could be presented as Catherine using the anniversary to strengthen her position beside William. That was the trap. Fight back, and the tribute becomes a palace feud. Stay quiet, and months of work disappears. Catherine chose silence. Not because she agreed, not because it didn't hurt. She chose it because protecting Diana's memory from another public argument mattered more than protecting her pride. But silence leaves traces. 3 weeks before the broadcast, Catherine returned to Adelaide Cottage after another planning meeting. She came in through the side door, put her folder on the table, and stood in the hallway alone for longer than usual. Charlotte saw her. Catherine didn't cry. She did something more unsettling. She smiled too quickly and said the ceremony had become complicated. Later that evening, Charlotte passed the study. The door was partly open. On the desk sat the original program covered in handwritten notes. Beside it, a single white rose from an early rehearsal. The room was empty. Charlotte stepped closer. Across Catherine's introduction, someone had drawn a single firm line. At the bottom of the page, 4 words in black ink. Removed from final program. Charlotte heard footsteps and backed away before anyone saw her. She said nothing that night. But for the first time, she understood that her mother had not willingly changed Diana's tribute. Someone had taken it from her. The folder reached Charlotte 18 days before the broadcast. It arrived with her papers for the Royal Youth Legacy Forum, beneath her speech draft, cream card, palace crest. A neat ribbon around the pages. Charlotte opened it after dinner. Most of the material was familiar. Then a folded sheet slipped from between 2 pages and landed near her chair. It wasn't meant for her. The heading carried the same dry language Catherine had received weeks earlier, but this copy was different. Handwritten marks in the margins. Initials near the bottom. A later circulation code. Charlotte read the First Amendment. Her name crossed out beside the final rose placement. She read the second. Catherine's introduction reduced to a welcome. Then the third. The film about Diana's charity work, removed. She didn't understand every line, but she understood enough. One note referred to maintaining proper distance between future representatives and past emotional associations. She read that sentence twice. Future representatives. Past emotional associations. It sounded polished. It felt cruel. She turned the page over and found another mark in darker ink. The lower part had been folded inward. She opened it carefully. Catherine was to have no final approval. Charlotte's place was to be reassigned. The Diana segment was to come under the Queen's household. And beneath those instructions, one handwritten line, unfinished, because the fold had torn across the page. Diana must not be allowed to... The sentence ended where the paper ended. Charlotte stared at it. Then she put the document back in the folder. Then changed her mind. If she returned it, someone could remove it. If she asked a member of staff, the page could disappear. She carried it upstairs and slipped it inside a book. For 3 nights, she said nothing. During the day, she watched her mother. Catherine attended meetings, answered questions, smiled through public appearances. But small things gave her away. She stopped mentioning the film. She avoided Charlotte's questions about the rose ceremony. Once, she closed the program folder when Charlotte entered the room. Charlotte finally asked her directly, had someone forced her to give up the tribute? Catherine didn't answer immediately. She looked toward the window. Then she said that duty sometimes meant accepting decisions that felt deeply unfair. Charlotte asked whether that made the decision right. Catherine said no, 1 word. And that single word removed every comfortable explanation Charlotte had been hoping to find. A scheduling issue, a misunderstanding, a decision made without realizing how much it would hurt. Catherine's answer destroyed all of it. She knew it was wrong, and she was still protecting the people who had done it. Charlotte nearly showed her the note, but Catherine looked exhausted, and she feared the page would deepen the wound before anything could be done about it. So she kept it hidden, and she started trying to understand who had written the unfinished line. The initials led back to a senior office inside Camilla's household. That connection made the meaning clear. A tribute centered on Diana, introduced by Catherine, completed by Charlotte, that would create an image no protocol could control. Diana's memory moving from William to Catherine, then into the next generation through Charlotte. Camilla would hold the title. Diana would hold the moment. Someone understood that. Someone feared it. And someone had decided to move Catherine and Charlotte away from the center before the cameras arrived. 3 days before the broadcast, Charlotte received a revised version of her speech. The final reference to Diana had been removed. No explanation, no replacement line, just an empty transition. Charlotte read it once, then placed it beside the hidden document. Her decision was made. On the morning of the forum, she folded the note into the inside pocket of her coat. She still didn't know whether she would reveal it. She only knew she wouldn't leave it behind. At Kensington Palace, Catherine adjusted her collar and told her not to be nervous. Charlotte looked at her mother and said she wasn't nervous anymore. Catherine smiled, unaware of what that answer meant. At 11:18, Charlotte approached the lectern. The opening followed the approved plan. She thanked the organizations attending. She spoke about kindness and the example set by women who served without demanding recognition. Her voice stayed steady. Her hands rested on the pages. Then she turned to Catherine. She described a mother who entered every room thinking first about the people nobody else had noticed. The audience applauded. William looked toward his wife with quiet pride. The speech should have ended there. It didn't. Charlotte lowered her eyes to the final paragraph, the rewritten one. She read the first sentence, stopped halfway through the second, and fell silent. 5 seconds. The moderator shifted in her chair. A producer raised one hand near the cameras. William's expression sharpened. Charlotte moved the approved speech aside. The sound of paper sliding across the lectern carried further than it should have. She said there was something she had been told not to discuss because it belonged within the family. Then she added that silence had already caused enough pain. Catherine's smile disappeared. Charlotte reached into her coat. At 11:24, she unfolded the note. A murmur moved through the audience. The palace crest was visible from the third row. Catherine recognized the format before she could read a word. She whispered Charlotte's name. It sounded less like a warning and more like a plea. Charlotte held the page and told the audience what it contained. The anniversary tribute for Diana had not been adjusted. It had been dismantled. Catherine's introduction was gone. The film had been removed. Charlotte's place beside the final rose had been reassigned. Approval had been taken from the household that created the ceremony. The cameras turned toward Catherine. She froze. Charlotte continued. She explained that she had found the note 18 days ago and kept it hidden. She had watched her mother smile in public while knowing that months of work had been quietly erased, without argument, without explanation, without anyone asking what it cost her. Then she said the sentence that changed the room. The family had not protected her mother in return. William leaned forward, his hands locked together. The moderator looked toward production. Nobody moved to interrupt. Charlotte left the lectern. She walked toward Catherine slowly, each step deliberate. Catherine rose before she arrived, perhaps to shield her from the cameras, perhaps to take the paper before anything more was said. Charlotte placed the note in her hands. Catherine looked down. Her eyes moved across the typed instructions and stopped at the handwriting near the bottom. Her breath caught. One hand rose toward her face. She turned slightly, trying to recover, but the tears arrived before she could stop them. Not because Charlotte had embarrassed her, because Charlotte had known. For 18 days, her daughter had carried an adult secret, had watched every silence, had waited for someone else to defend the woman who spent her life defending everyone around her. Charlotte reached for her free hand. William remained seated for one more second, his eyes fixed on the lower edge of the page. Something was folded there, a hidden line. Charlotte saw him notice. She pressed her thumb across the fold and told the audience there was one sentence she would not read. Not here, not in front of her mother. Once spoken publicly, it could never be taken back. The forum stopped completely. No applause, no music. Only Catherine steadying herself beside her daughter, while the room held its breath around them. William rose and asked Charlotte one question, quietly enough for the nearby microphones to catch it. Was this the only copy? Charlotte said she didn't know. That answer changed his face entirely, because a single page could be dismissed. A misplaced draft could be denied. But another copy would mean circulation. Another copy would mean intent. When the broadcast ended, William ordered every file connected to Diana's tribute secured before anyone left the building. The hidden sentence, the one Charlotte had protected, was found in a duplicate folder inside a secured archive. Anne located it that afternoon. She placed both copies side by side before William. The first contained the beginning. The second completed the thought. Diana must not be allowed to eclipse the Queen again. Remove Catherine's tribute and keep the girl away from the center. The girl. Not Princess Charlotte. Not William's daughter. Not Diana's granddaughter. The girl. William read it without moving. Then read it again, slower. His anger didn't appear as raised voices. It appeared as stillness. The particular stillness of someone who has just understood something they can never unknow. He restored Catherine's introduction that same day. Charlotte's place beside the final rose was returned. The Diana film went back into the program. Final approval returned to William and Catherine's office. No further change could be made without both signatures. Anne added one instruction of her own. Every future alteration had to be recorded beside the name of the person requesting it. No initials, no vague office codes, no hiding behind the household. Later, when the officials had left, Catherine turned to Charlotte. There was no anger in her face, only the exhaustion of a mother, realizing her daughter had spent 18 days believing she had to solve an adult problem alone. She told Charlotte that courage didn't always mean speaking in public. Charlotte asked whether she had chosen the wrong moment. Catherine shook her head. She said the wrong moment had come weeks earlier, when the adults who saw what was happening decided silence was easier. Charlotte admitted she had been afraid Catherine would be ashamed of her. Catherine pulled her close and said the shame belonged elsewhere. William watched without interrupting. Anne stood near the table with one hand resting beside the two versions of the program. The evidence had done more than expose a hidden instruction. It had revealed a contest over memory, over who gets to carry Diana's legacy forward, and who gets to decide when it's been carried far enough. Charlotte had answered that question for herself. In a coat pocket, 18 days, and a moment nobody in that building was prepared for. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think Charlotte was right to speak, or should she have found another way? Drop your honest take in the comments below. If this story stayed with you, hit that like button, and subscribe if you haven't yet, because the next chapter of this one isn't finished. See you in the next one.